Welcome to our webinar, everybody. We're very excited about the new products and can't wait to show you what we have in store for you.
Absolutely. So I'd just like to talk about that a little bit. We're really excited to reveal all the new features and enhancements that have been underway for this last year, and are very excited to show you kind of what's new. So we will be rolling out all of this information this fall through December to all of you. You've probably seen the email that went out in a customer newsletter about a month or so ago. If you have not, just drop me a note and I can make sure you've got that. Just a few logistics for today's webinar. Sounds like it's really quiet, so so thank you all for muting your phones. If you've got any questions, put them in the chat window and we'll answer all the questions at the end. As far as the agenda goes, we'll go through a quick overview and then we'll do a demonstration of the newest additions and changes to 3 of the modules and introduce the newest module, Advisor. We'll talk through rollout information, go through the training details, and then end with Q&A to make sure you get your questions answered. As you know, there's 4 modules now that make up the analytic engine that we call GuideK12, and Explorer is really for the district analysis component, and that's replacing what had been called Student View. Planner is for boundary planning and scenario planning and is replacing Enrollment View. Advisor is the brand new one, which is going to do more reporting, charting, graphing, and is very intertwined with Planner. And then School Search is very similar to what it's been. We've got some new tweaks to that I think you'll really like, and that's the address lookup tool. So those are the 4 modules that we're going to walk through. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the screen over to Dan so he can start showing you kind of what's new with each of the modules. We're going to start with Explorer as Dan pulls that up and start showing you kind of all of the changes that we've made.
Thank you, Julie. For those that may have arrived just a little bit late after introductions, I'm Dan Ock, Director of Customer Experience with GuideK12, and along with Julie Fitzgerald, our Vice President of Marketing and Sales, we're going to be going over the different changes in the new upgraded modules, as well as the brand new module Advisor. So I will be showing you the changes and upgrades to Explorer and Planner, and then Julie will be taking over and walking you through the new Advisor module, as well as talking a little bit about the School Search changes that we have recently made that we also have communicated that to a little bit ago, but certainly want to make sure everybody is up to speed on the new advances in the School Search as well. So for some of you, we've had an initial version of Explorer out for a little bit now. So some of you may actually have this instance running with your applications, albeit there are a number of modifications to the new Explorer that will be coming out in enhancements, and I will make sure to particularly point those out as well. What I'm going to do is walk you through the new interface. As you can see, we've completely redesigned Explorer, and Explorer has taken over for what you know as Student View, which is kind of your everyday use tool. It's the read-only tool. You're not creating boundary scenarios or moving students around, but you're simply querying students and looking at the data with a more analytic lens. So Explorer has improved its interface. As you can see here, we have much more screen real estate now for the map itself. And we have also started to put tools in places that are a little more intuitive to using them in Explorer. We'll go ahead and start out with the changes to the user interface. Again, we've tried to keep things very similar. On the left-hand panel, you can see we still do have a dashboard. We have a summary dashboard where you can see we have our filters dialog area at the top, and below that, our summary of selected students and the map by portion. Let's take a look at the summary area and map by sections in particular to look at what's changed. You still have the ability as a district to choose what variables you would like to see in your summary dashboard. And you can see in here we have the variables of special ed, ESL, and the transfer status variables in our demonstration site. Again, your district has the ability to let us know which elements you want to see in that dashboard. The summary dashboard is to give you quick, instant feedback on your selections, and will change again as you filter down and select students by attributes and geography. We have added some levels of detail to the summary dashboard. In particular, along with the counts, we have also added the percent of that selection to the right-hand column. This makes it much more intuitive when doing some of your selections rather than having to figure those calculations out for yourself. You'll now see that directly on the screen. We also have a little bit of additional information in the summary dashboard that I will show when we take a look at the enhancements to our vintage information, which is data about your data stream, or student data in this case. The map by section still allows you to use any of your variables that are loaded in your application to map the student dots by. We have also added the count and the, again, percent breakdown of that selection in the map by section. That was something that was not in student view. And with this combination of the selected summary dashboard as well as the map by statistics, you'll be able to get at detailed counts and percentages for any attribute loaded into your application. Okay, also on the left-hand panel, we have our filters dialog. One thing you'll notice that when I start talking about functionality is we've made filtering easier than it used to be in student view. Whereas you used to have to go through some logic of querying without selection and hitting that button, we've removed that kind of cumbersome step from Explorer. We simply now have the ability to go into our filters dialog, and just like your set student filters dialog in student view, we've designed it similarly with the left-hand panel showing the categories available to you in your application for that data stream. And on the right-hand side are the values with the checkboxes that you're used to. One improvement we also made in the category section is once I start filtering, you're going to see a big green check mark there show up in the category, and they'll be telling you that you have values selected for that field. So here I've chosen grades K, 1, and 2. You'll notice it filtered real time. All I need to do is click the finish button to go ahead and filter that set of students. And now we're looking at a filtered set. We also tell you here in the summary dashboard that it is filtered and your total count. Another major improvement is in the rendering of the counts of the map by section. The previous initial version of Explorer, if there were 0 counts for a particular school, so in this case we've dropped a few schools because there are not students in this selection, those schools now get eliminated from the map by. So in your districts that are larger, that you have a lot more schools or a lot of variables for a category, it will weed out those categories that don't have any students selected so that you don't have to scroll through a long list anymore. Along with the new filters dialog, there is also a summary of what you're filtering on below. So if I add in those grades filtered, and then let's add in receiving ELL, we're going to see that that now tells us very clearly what we are filtering on. Besides in the filters dialog, we also have a notepad here, a little folder here that shows you what your current filter settings are as well. Okay, we'll save exporting for later. Let's take a look at the map area and what's changed on the map. We have added or moved all the mapping tools from the left-hand panel in Student View. They are now on the map where they are more intuitive as to their use. So we've got our navigation tools, which allow us to zoom and pan, as well as identify students on the map. We still have our drawing tool tools here on the map now, so we can choose by geography. In this case, I'll draw a simple polygon. And filter the selection by geography. A major improvement is the fact now that we can also draw multiple non-contiguous shapes. In student view, as if you may have been frustrated or may have remembered, you can only draw one feature at a time. We've removed that limitation, so now you can have multiple shapes drawn on the map at any one time. You are also able to use the delete functions to either delete all the features on the map, or there's a eraser tip that allows you to delete one. So you have a lot more control over your selections by geography. There are also undo and redo buttons that will undo and redo the latest graphic changes. And along with that, we still have our advanced tool options. They've been moved over here to the wrench and screwdriver icon. We can choose again to still select by our geographies with our layers, use buffers, and a brand new function is to invert the selection. So rather than finding everybody within those shapes you've drawn or selected, let's find everybody outside. If you check the invert selection box, the selection changes to show you everybody outside of the areas of selection. And one thing to note, you won't be able, you will want to make sure that your check boxes are off of here when you close your advanced tools to make sure that you're not selecting advanced layers or having something that might confuse you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete these and let all the students draw. You'll notice filtering is much easier. Just getting rid of that query without selection button has improved the efficiency and ease of use of the user interface. Looking on the right-hand side, we have moved the map tab from the left where it used to be over to an overlays dialog. This is where you control the layers that are allowed to be toggled on and off. An important change we're making is by default, we're now adding outlines to the overlays dialog by default. You'll be able to do feeder pattern correlations much better by toggling outlines on top of the current school boundary layer. Some additional filter options or filter overlay options on the dots on the map. We have added the ability to change your visualization. By default, we have what's called a scaled pack point. That means this will stay the same, or it will adjust the screen based on your zoom level. When we're further out, you'll notice in our map by section, one dot right now is less than or equal to 4.22 students. This allows you to still see the attribute clarity at a full district zoom level. It's aggregating those dots of students that are within a certain proximity and their similar attributes. But as we drill down, and I'll zoom in tight here very quickly, that is if GoToMeeting will let me. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag here. As I zoom in, we'll notice that our map by changes. Let me zoom out a little bit. I zoomed in too tight. And we can now see one dot is equal to one student. So scaled pack points is the default, but we also have the ability to go back to a stack point. So let me talk to you about the differences of visualizations that we have here in the new Explorer. Explorer, by default, will show you the pack points, which will allow you to see multiple students much easier at a single address level. And move the map here to find an area of multifamily dwellings. As we can see here, even in this single family area, we can see the households that have 2, 3, or 4 or more children. As I zoom out, we can now see where there are apartments much easier, where we have larger aggregated dots of students here, and we can still see all of their various attributes. In addition to the packed points, we have an option called pie clusters. This is going to allow you to kind of get a very high overview of an area where it's going to create pie charts, and where it's probably more intuitive to use would be for things such as special ed or your ESL or your free and reduced, where you want to take a quick look and see if you have any pockets of areas of concern. So those are some new visuals that we have available to you. As far as the outputs go, exporting, we have all the same exports available to you for mailing labels, spreadsheets, CSV, as well as GIS data format output. And we have also added the map image and map legend outputs. These will output the map image and legend to PNG formats for inclusion in other graphics or presentations that you'll be possibly needing them for. The search and explore, there's a new enhanced search that searches across data streams. And when I say data streams, we now have the ability to have multiple different data sources in Explore. You'll see in here, we have students, parcels, and births. Some customers have chosen to load staff data streams or community ed data streams. Anything that has an address that can be mapped can be added as a data stream in Explore and searched across. To finalize some information here for Explore, we've added some additional options for the base map. We now have satellite options, a hybrid option as well, so the user can see the satellite map. We also have a couple of other different travel layers provided by Google Maps. And the changing of the school type is still up in the upper right-hand corner. It is now a drop-down rather than radio buttons. And lastly, the vintage information. We have kept some great features such as the exporting records without geocode, so you can track your ungeocoded students and look at those addresses for possible errors. We also allow you to see very accurately across categories how well you've geocoded within a particular category. So if you're going to be basing decisions on that information in the map, you want to know if a category is deficient in a lot of geocodes or not. So we've added the ability by toggling this checkbox on in the advanced options to see that. Now we see in the red, we can see our geocode rate % across those categories as well. So those are some of the major highlights of the Explore conversion and upgrade. And so now let's take a look and move on over to Planner. Planner is the replacement for our existing enrollment view module. As you know, that is for creating boundary scenarios and reporting on those changes. What you'll notice in Planner is we've maintained obviously the same user interface inside of Planner as Explorer has. Those of you that have had Explorer already and are still using Enrollment View know kind of it's not apples to apples with the interface, so it'll be nice to have everybody on the same user interface going forward and streamline the process. We have maintained much of the similar functionality in Planner, such as how you go about changing boundaries and changing students, but just have made some efficiency improvements as well as some performance enhancements and advanced reporting. One major change to Planner that Julie will be talking about in detail is the fact that it can talk to Advisor, our new module, which allows you to create those bar charts, graphs, thematic maps. It'll be able to talk to Planner. They talk to one another and they look for changes so that you can actually analyze your boundary scenarios on the fly. And Julie will talk a little bit about that when she talks about Advisor. Okay, the left-hand panel, we'll kind of go through the similar pattern here in Planner and talk about what's changed and what's still the same inside of Planner. On the left-hand side, you'll see we still have the summary dashboard. One major change from enrollment view to Planner is in enrollment view, scenario builder dialog always came up and you had to create a scenario to use that product. With Planner, you'll notice that it comes in and is already able to be used based on the current student vintage and pre-filtered to the elementary level. One thing I didn't mention about Explore 2 is, and Planner will be the same way, it has settings to remember your last filter settings, where you were zoomed to, what you were mapping by, and all of that. So as long as you don't clear your cache, GuideK12 will bring you back into where you left off in your products. There is, and I'll mention this so I don't forget, a clear my settings option. If you ever do want to just reset everything, you can click the clear my settings button and that will go ahead and reset the map and filter settings and geography back to the default state. So along again with the summary dashboard and the map by sections, you can see they're the same here in Planner as they are Explore. The filter dialog as well is the same. Note in Planner, we have maintained the fact that it's pre-filtered to the level you're working on. That makes it much easier to work in planning when you're not having to filter out all the buildings that you're not worried about at that level that you're not working with. So it's pre-filtered. The addition on the left-hand side is with the changes dialog. And again, that will be for making your changes. Once you've drawn your areas or selected your students, you'll be able to make your changes. I'm going to go ahead and open a scenario that was already created just to show you some new functionality or new options available to you with your scenarios being open. One of the major changes that we're going to have here is with the change history. That might not have been a good scenario to open. We can view and edit change history. You'll notice that we had a console below before on the bottom. That console has been removed from the bottom and the change history dialog put up into the changes area here. I seem to be having one of those moments where my changes dialog was not showing me what I wanted it to. Okay, here's a scenario where I have some changes. So this is the change history. Again, we're going to keep track of the changes you're making and allow you to undo those changes. A major change that we will have now is the fact that you can change only, you can kind of line item veto your changes. Before, it would replace everything prior to that or after that change you wanted to remove. Now you can remove things in a non-linear fashion, so you don't have to get rid of everything if you don't want to. It will also remember the fact that you are undoing or undoing a change, and will allow you to redo the undid change. So a lot more functionality or improved functionality and usability of the change history dialog. You'll notice also the addition of a capacity summary pane and your racial balance pane on the left-hand side here, showing you dynamic changes to your capacities and racial balance numbers so that you can take a look at and get that quick count and percent of capacity and balance information. These can all be expanded and contracted as needed to make room for more display on the left-hand side. Exporting, again, we can export the map image and map legend, as well as still continue to export our boundaries and the new student assignments based on your changes in the scenario. Reporting is where there's some major changes we have kept some of the canned reports and improved some of them as well as the fact that Advisor really becomes a very, very highly detailed reporting engine for scenarios generated with Planner. You'll see that we have the capacity reports, impact reports, or demographic reports, and inheritance reports still inside of here. And again, I won't go through all the changes in each report. It will take too long in this environment, but we have added clarity. We have added efficiencies in these reports. No longer do you have to go out and go to each level to get reports for each level. These reports will give you all levels on separate tabs inside of an Excel spreadsheet. So you can do it all in one download now rather than having to jump multiple levels if your scenario is across multiple levels. And again, all of the other options available in Explore still exist here with your base map options and travel layers. And toggling between levels, notice if I switch to the middle school level here, again, Planner is smart enough to know I only want to work with those students on the middle school level now. It's changed our middle school boundaries and filtered on the middle school students by default. Okay, and that's a quick overview of Planner. Julie, unless you have anything you want to add, you can move on to Advisor.
Great, thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. If you can send me the screen, I will show my screen. All right, so now you should be seeing a different view, and I have the pleasure of sharing with you our brand new module that we've been talking about called Advisor. And this is really exciting because GuideK12 is really a location-based software, geographic-based software, and we still are. But Advisor brings in some new elements of graphing and reporting, and so it really puts us into a kind of a whole nother category that I like to talk about. Is it really puts us into the category of being a data analytics engine. And I want to stress and pause for a moment that with the addition of this module, I'd like to just challenge you or to think about and examine who in the organization, who in your district is currently using GuideK12 and who else could benefit from it within the team. When you start to see some of the new functionality and capabilities, there might be other people that could use it than are currently using it. Advisor was designed specifically to make analysis simple. There's no formulas required, no spreadsheets. It's really all about drop-down menus. And so to give you a little bit of idea of, I could make a bar chart, a line chart, a pie chart, thematic maps even. I can output my information to create presentations to PowerPoint, that kind of thing. And it really is as simple as looking at the same elements that I'm getting from my student information system. I might want to look at something like my special ed students. In the matter of a click, it shows me the count of how many students across the district I've got in whatever program, whatever category that I'm looking at. One of the things that when we showed this to administrators in some early releases of this when we were working on it, the comment kept coming back of, I love not having to request data and wait. I love having it at my fingertips, being able to run it myself, because sometimes I don't even know what questions to ask until I can start digging into the data. So in this case, I'm seeing that I've got 5,466 students that are receiving special ed, but maybe I want to group them a little bit more fine-tuned. So now maybe I want to look at it by gender, for example. Now I'm looking at special ed, but I've grouped them by gender for male and female. And it's as easy as that. And I'm looking at them by count, but in another click, I can switch it to percentage so I can see that 18.84% are boys, 9.3% are girls. It makes it very, very quick and easy to start to look at information. And maybe I want to filter even deeper. And I want to filter into something like I might want to look at my fifth graders that are in special ed because I want to look at my resource needs as they roll into middle school for next year. How many students do I need to be accommodating, and where are they going to attend? So, you know, running through this very, very quickly, not intended to be a training, but to really get you excited about what we're doing and all of the things that it's capable of doing. Next, I want to show you something that is more around looking at things over time. That's one of the things that, as you know, we capture vintages. We capture monthly vintages within GuideK12. And many districts have an annual vintage as well. So maybe I want to look at the last 5 school years, and I want to look at that by school type. I want to look at my elementary schools, my middle schools, and my high schools, and looking at the attendance or the enrollment. And I can see that my middle schools and my high schools are declining in enrollment. My elementary schools are holding fairly steady. Now, this could become a speaking point of the middle schools are declining, but very quickly I can fine tune that. And it allows me to, again, kind of break through some of those myths, because although overall that is true, I have some middle schools that are increasing in enrollment. So, you know, having the ability to get very granular with my data and making sure that I'm talking about which ones are declining and which ones are not. So it allows me to keep digging as so I can get at the answers that I need to get at. So that's just showing a little bit of the longitudinal stuff. Now, what Dan talked about is how intertwined advisor and planner can be. So I want to talk about advisor can be a standalone tool, as I'm showing you there. But if you are doing a boundary plan, advisor is tracking what you're doing in your scenario. So I could go in here and say I want to look at maybe I just want to look at this year, a scenario from this year or overall. And then I want to look at a scenario I created. I've called it Boundary Change 919. And I want to look at how I'm affecting my elementary schools. So now what this does is it shows me the names of all of my elementary schools. It shows me Boundary Change 919 and the data from that scenario. I'm going to scroll down because I know that my boundary change scenario that I picked is affecting Forest Hills Elementary School, and I could filter so I'm only seeing them, but I wanted to see it across the board. And I can see that Forest Hills Elementary has 1,281 students in the 15-16 school year. With the boundary change scenario that I just entered, they'd have 1,212 or 1,220. Gregerson, which was also affected by the boundary change scenario, went up. So I can start to look at these changes visually and very easily by just selecting my scenarios. I can also show it in a data table. So if I want to look at it visually, but I can also look at the numbers if I want to just confirm what the exact specific numbers are by building. So it gives me lots of options of how I'm looking at things. And then the last thing I want to show, you know, I can do line charts, I can do pie charts. There are so many varieties of things that I can output. But one of the things I want to look at is the thematic map, which is, again, a pretty powerful tool and a powerful way to analyze my data. And what this is showing me is concentrations of any particular feature that I'm looking at. And the darker the color, the more concentrated it is. So again, I'm looking at my elementary school boundaries. I could be changing that in a click. If I wanted to be looking at any particular characteristic, I could be filtering on, again, looking at special ed. I could look at that, and it does account by geography for me. And it shows me I've got the highest concentration of special ed students in Forest Hills Elementary. Now, if I go back in and filter further, I might want to go back in again and look at that 5th grade scenario with the idea of 5th graders that are rolling into my middle schools, and I've got a pretty high concentration in Moreland Elementary. So I could then turn on my middle school boundaries and start to look at how they're rolling up. So again, this just allows me to start to look at concentrations, whether I'm looking at demographic concentrations, free and reduced, ethnicity. There's lots of different things that thematic mapping can be a very interesting tool and a powerful tool to start to look at things differently. So again, we're very excited about all of the potential of what can be done in Advisor as a brand new tool. The next thing I'm going to switch to is I'm going to switch over to School Search. Now the changes with School Search, a couple of things I want to emphasize with School Search is you may think of School Search today as a simple address lookup tool that you've got a link on your website and allows parents, realtors, community members to look up a school and based on the address that they're assigned to. I would like to really focus on the fact that we believe it's the most customizable, flexible school communication tool that's out in the market. And really communication directors need to be aware of what GuideK12 School Search can do for a district and really focus on those capabilities. With School Search and the improvements, it's important to step back and really think about all the possibilities, because if you're offering different programs in different buildings, if you've got magnet programs, unique tracks, AP, IB, if parents can choose on any of these kinds of things, this tool really allows you to customize and tell your story by building and really customize the information in each window that comes up. I know most districts don't have a large advertising budget to compete. This is a great place to get that narrative to come through with the facts and the details outlining the best of what your school district is offering. So one of the primary things that we've changed is today you have to enter an address and it pulls up a map. But if you don't have that address, and I'm going to clear this location because this is what a parent would see. They would, if they zoom in, they can see their home and they can see all of the options of where they could attend. But if I wanted to clear that location, and if I just wanted to zoom in to an area, maybe I'm thinking about moving, maybe I've got a general area in mind, but I don't have an address. If I am thinking I'm moving into that area, I can just click on the map, and now it starts to show me exactly my assigned schools. Again, you can make these live links to those websites. Some districts are putting in little icons showing whether this school is transportation eligible or not. This particular district wanted to highlight not only their assigned schools in red, but they wanted to have the alternative schools pop up in the window right away. Some districts are using advanced search to put their magnet programs and their various program offerings in here that somebody could search on. There's a lot of flexibility that depending on how you want to emphasize what you're offering to your families, it really opens up a lot of possibilities. I wanted to show another example, and these are, again, live examples of districts that are doing some really cool things with School Search. This is a Minnesota district that was going through changes and how they're using it, and this is an interesting idea for districts that are going through boundary changes, is they were also using it as not just a current address lookup tool. And a lot of districts will do that. They will show their school year 17-18 address lookup, and then if they've got a boundary plan that has been approved and changed, they'll show on their school website their next year's maybe 18-19 school year what the new boundaries look like. So they might show two boundary plans for 2 different years so parents can get that information. What this district did is even different. They did it before the boundary plans were approved. They're showing the different scenarios. So if I click on the map, and this is where I live, it's showing me how I'm affected by where I live. So if I am, it's showing me the address, and then if it's showing me that in scenario 1, my middle school would be Jackson. Scenario 1A, it's showing me my junior high is West Junior High. So it's showing me by scenario how I am affected by where I live. Scenario B, I'd be assigned to Pearson. So it's giving me a chance to look at what most parents want to know is, how does this affect me from an elementary, from a middle school, and then if I want to turn on high school and look at all those scenarios, I could as well. So again, the point with this is really to showcase all of the functionality and the customization and flexibility that you have with School Search. And it's a good time with the changes on all of the modules to really think about this. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dan. And Dan, I'm going to have you talk about the rollout and the training.
Thank you very much, Julie. Yeah, what Julie said about School Search is something that's very important. We're really finding our districts are coming to us with, we're really finding great flexible options for School Search. So if you have needs for communicating those schools, whether it's pre-boundary planning, post-boundary planning, give us a call, send us an email, let us know. There's a lot of different options that work for School Search. And as is usually the case in going over an overview, sometimes things get missed. And I was thinking back about Planner, and I missed a couple of very important things that I want to point out just before I move on to the rollout process. One is that in the new Planner, you will be able to replay scenarios with new student data vintages. Meaning, if you started your boundary plans in the beginning of the school year and want to update it towards the later part of the school year, maybe you're 4 or 5 months down the road and want to see how your scenarios still play out with updated student data, you'll be able to replay that scenario with different student data. The other option is comes along the lines of sharing. Previously in Enrollment View, all administrators would have access to see all those scenarios that are generated. Now scenarios are created at the user level, and the user can choose when and if they want to share that scenario in a read-only format. So just wanted to point those two things out about Planner before moving on to the rollout. So as you can see here on the PowerPoint here, the rollout will happen in phases, and we're going to begin that in October. So we're looking at about 4 different waves or phases. And we're kind of basing that on some of the, when the customers are up and running, what their needs are, what they're working on right now, because there is a little bit of a gap with Enrollment View to Planner in particular, where if you're working on scenarios right now in Enrollment View, you don't necessarily want to upgrade to Planner right away if you don't have a need to, because there's a incompatibility of backward compatibility of the actual scenarios in Enrollment View due to the nature of the added new enhancements and infrastructure surrounding the new formatting and options in Planner. So if you're using, if your district that's actively using Enrollment View right now, makes sense to kind of wait for that later batch. And we can also keep your Enrollment View on with Planner concurrently if you are in that situation and have any issues. So we'll be able to make sure that we don't have you lose anything, as well as if you really need to be upgraded, let us know that as well. Because of the new functions, we can get you put into different batches based on that. We will communicate with you prior to your upgrade to let you know when that is occurring, and if there's anything that we need to get from you to with the enhanced infrastructure that we do have. There may be a need to get some additional school information, but right now it's going to be very minimal impact on the district for these upgrades. Again, as the third bullet point states here, if you, our first wave of or batch of customers is kind of already kind of full up, but if you have a real need to upgrade sooner than later, let us know that, and we'll do our best to prioritize that for you. The plan is to be done again by mid-December. Okay. And Julie, you have a next or after the rollout, we're going to talk about the training options. Thank you. So for training, we've got some options for you. What we're planning to do is we're hopeful that obviously most of the tools here are very straightforward upgrades, and we've made intuitive changes to the user interface that most of you won't have too much trouble, but we certainly want to make sure we have resources available to you. So we're going to have some online training sessions beginning in October and going through early December for each different wave of new releases. So we'll make sure to have those trainings available, and there'll be webinar style trainings free to the district to join, and we'll have those throughout, again, mid to late October through November and early December. We'll also do a recording of those different webinars and allow you to have access to that via our help site. We'll have new help materials in the site that are being put into place, and we're hopeful that those will be available in October to coincide, they will be available in October to coincide with the release of the first wave of upgrades. As always, you can always contact us if you have a need to train a whole new group of people and do an on-site full suite training. That is available. Let us know. It's up to 15 participants, and that fee is $1,600. We'll come out there and do another full on-day training for you as well. So again, hopefully it will be minimal impacts on the upgrades. Advisor will be, obviously the biggest tool, but we're hoping it's very intuitive, and that the webinar style training will get you up and running with that and have you using Advisor like a pro in no time.
And what I'd like to add is Dan touched on the new help site, but much more advanced than what is currently there. Will be more step-by-step instructions, as well as new print materials that we have not had in the past, that are good refreshers of the features and reminders of how to do things. That you'll have kind of quick start guides for each of the modules that we're excited about as well. So we're starting to get questions to come in, and in the remaining few minutes, we wanted to make sure that we have the opportunity to answer questions. So we're going to switch over to answering questions. And one of the questions that's come in is something that we should have covered earlier. Is Advisor part of the upgrade, or is it an additional expense? And I really appreciate that question. Advisor is absolutely included. It is not an additional expense. It is a new module that we are including to all of our current customers. It's just part of the GuideK12 suite, and it's kind of part of our philosophy that starts with our CEO of we don't nickel and dime, and so we are excited about adding this additional functionality. And it's just part of the upgrade, and you'll see it as we update all of the other modules. So we're excited about that. One of the questions, Dan, that I'm going to throw to you has come in is the previous year's vintage data just from the last upload of the year?
So we're very flexible with our data vintages in the new product with the new infrastructure we've set up. What you saw in our demo where we had 5 school year historic snapshots. Those can be from any snapshot that you want. The district simply would let us know, hey, these are annual snapshots. These are kind of our statistical or kind of annual snapshot that's deemed to be used for analysis. So those can be flagged that way. We also have the automated uploads that most districts right now are sending us an automated upload on a nightly basis. So we have that nightly upload coming, and we take monthly snapshots of your student data in that case. So you have a snapshot going forward. Once you've been a customer, you have your snapshots once a month that are also stored. So we have multiple different data vintages that you can have access to. With Advisor, we will be going and asking the districts if they want to provide those historical school year snapshots, and then we can get those loaded for you.
Great. The couple other questions, Dan, is again, can you just talk about, okay, here's the questions are coming in. Can we give principals and data analysts a view-only access? Dan?
A view, That depends. So the only product that is not view only is Planner. Planner allows you to create scenarios, and where you're actually modifying boundaries and moving students to different buildings in that scenario. Having said that, all the other products are view only or read only. I'm not sure if, hopefully that'll answer your question. We also have different role types that allow us to control which users see which data variables. So yes, you could have principals that only have access to certain variables about their student data.
Or maybe just their building. Another question I have, if you were done with that, Dan, is we currently have the option to export students who did not geocode. Let me say that again. We currently have the option to export students who did not geocode. However, we would like an option to export geocoded records with the original address and the geocoded address so that we can verify that the student was placed correctly. We find that certain records get geocoded sometimes to an incorrect address. How do we address that?
So if students get geocoded to an incorrect address location, you need to make us aware of that, and we can do an override on that. Unfortunately, there is no automated way to know if a geocode is in the incorrect location. Everything is done to try to ensure that we don't geocode to an incorrect location. As you know, we geocode to address point locations, rooftop addresses, parcel, centroids, and interpolated street center lines. There is on occasion an interpolated street center line that gets has the student get placed in the wrong location. Again, if we're notified of the address that in question, we can go ahead and do an override and get it into the correct location. But there's no report that can really flag, you know, if it's in the wrong location. Julie, are you, I don't know if you got muted or I can't hear you any longer. Okay, it looks like we may have lost Julie here for the moment. Is everybody hearing me okay? I just got to make sure that that I'm still on here in the meeting.
Yes.
Dan, you sound great.
Okay, thank you. Good. So we'll wait for Julie here to get back on, and I'll go ahead and I'll start. I'll see if I can find where she left off with the questions and get back on track with those. Okay. So there was a question, will prior year vintages be available in the new version? So in the new version, there is a kind of a cutoff of where, again, we're going to maintain those past historical vintages, but there is a change in infrastructure that won't allow those to be immediately accessible in Advisor and Planner. What we want you to do for having historical, again, snapshots is we're going to ask again for 5 years of historical snapshots going back in time if you want to be able to provide those. From the time you get upgraded, then going forward, those are then available to Advisor and Planner with the new vintages. So there is a little bit of a break. We will be able to, if there is a spot where you're in a tough spot and you have to use a certain previous vintage that we had, we we should be able to do a modification that will allow us to import that as a new vintage that's available to the new products. But we will have to do some customization of it to make it compatible. Next question, is advisor portion part of upgrade or is it an additional expense? As usual, there's no additional expense when we provide upgrades, enhancements, new product. It is free of charge, concluded in your subscription.
And then Dan, I'm back. I had a phone glitch, but one of the last questions that is around how do we show the maps? What are the possibilities for output?
As I demonstrated, we have the option to export those map images and the map legends to PNG images. You'll get what you see on the screen. It's using a resolution of about 2 megabytes by 2 megabytes. Generally speaking, that will print not your large format that I know many of you want to have. Again, they just are technical limitations with the way online maps are created for the use of on a digital screen environment to actually getting them in a high enough resolution output. You'll be able to print at about 20 inches by 20 inches with decent quality from the exports in Explorer and Planner. Again, there are just limitations on the way maps are generated that don't allow to produce high quality, large format maps at this time.
We do see a lot of people using the maps on their website and printing them onto PowerPoint and using them in projections, projecting them in community meetings and various ways to do that. We are now at the top of the hour, so I want to just say thank you to everybody for participating. We really appreciate it. We're very excited about all the new features and functionality, and excited to get everybody converted over and trained. Again, you know, Dan and I are always available if you've got questions in the meantime. I think you probably know how to reach us, just let us know if you have any questions, but we appreciate your time, and Dan, I appreciate your time and today as well.
Thank you, Julie. And I just want to state one last time, you know, this will be a great opportunity for districts to add new users. There are no limits on the number of seat licenses you have of GuideK12. So when you get your new upgrades, and we've got our webinars there for you to gain access to, invite new people, bring them on board, see if GuideK12 can help them out in their daily jobs. And again, I want to thank everybody, just like Julie did, for your time, and we really appreciate everything you do to make GuideK12 what it is today. Your feedback, your needs help us drive what we're going to enhance the product with.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.